At 9:12 p.m., with steam still lifting from the lobster I wouldn't end up serving, my daughter-in-law leaned in, hissed a threat I'll never forget. And the next week she'd be walking out of a community meeting while my son signed papers she once swore he'd never touch. That's the part people always ask me about, the moment the story turns. But you should know how we got there. My name is Victoria. I am 73, a retired piano teacher with wrists that remember Bach more easily than jars. I set my table the way my mother taught me, an ironed cloth, flatware bright enough to see or doubt in, and a chair for each possibility. That evening I had four, my son Mark, his wife Diana, and their children Thomas and Lily. I cooked what I thought would make the night feel like occasion: garlicked shrimp, butter-glossed lobster, oysters nested on shaved ice. My usual roast chicken waited in the oven in case someone needed safety. I wanted the first taste to be a welcome so clear even the anxious could understand it. Diana arrived in a hurry of perfume and announcements. She is 32 and confident in that practiced, modern way, curated, immaculate, efficient. To her, traditions are museums you visit once for the picture. "We won't stay late," she said to the hallway, not to me. "The kids have things." We made it through the grace. Thomas winked at the cookie tin like a co-conspirator. Lily drew small suns on a napkin with a dull pencil I should have thrown away. Mark studied my trays as if help were rare. Diana watched the oysters like critics watch opening nights. "Shellfish," she said. "Bold." "I have chicken warming," I said, cheerful as a butler. "If you'd prefer?" She smiled. It didn't reach the part of her face that holds kindness. It's not about preference. It's about choices that make sense. The night tried its best to stay whole. We served, we joked, we left space for peace to sit down. Mark took the children to the living room to practice card tricks. When the kitchen door swung shut, the room exhaled, and so did I. Diana set her glass beside the sink with care, as if even the counter needed to know who ran the evening. "I don't want to do this anymore," she said. "This?" I asked. "This performance. You inviting us so Mark can pretend nothing's wrong while he spends his weekends fixing your gutters and reorganizing your pillbox." "I asked for help because sometimes I need it," I said. "And because he offers." She stepped closer. The refrigerator hummed like a warning. "You are not his only family." Her voice dropped, precise and cold. "If you tell Mark we had this talk, I will make sure your access to the children becomes a once-a-year courtesy. Grandmothers are optional, Victoria." Her hand moved, sharp, sudden, a blur that stopped just short of my cheek. A flinch lives in every old pianist. I felt mine rise like a metronome. She didn't touch me. She got what she wanted anyway, the message. We understood each other then, the way duelists do before the 10 paces. I could have called out for Mark. I could have turned the evening into a courtroom and begged the jury in the living room to believe me. But I've lived long enough to know some fires consume the house they claim to warm. I smoothed the dish towel, let the silence settle, and learned a very old lesson again. The person who names the war is rarely the one who wins it. So I fed everyone. I laughed at the card trick where the ace always becomes a queen. I wrapped leftovers as if tomorrow were guaranteed. When they left, I stood in the doorway and memorized the shape of my life as it was. In the morning, I brewed tea and made a plan. Across the lane lives Simon, 28, kind as a library and handsome in ways that don't know they are. He was my student once, 11, elbows too big for his sleeves, a boy who learned to lay his hand on the keys like he was comforting an animal. He brings my mail when the lid freezes. He fixes the latch on my gate without telling me. He is the sort of neighbor that makes a neighborhood a promise. I baked a small cake and knocked on his door. "I need your help," I said. "And I need you to say no if it doesn't sit right." He let me in. His apartment was neat with the pride of making your own way. A modest keyboard against one wall opened to Debussy, like an invitation he had not yet accepted. I told him about the kitchen, about the threat. I did not make Diana a monster. Monsters let you sleep. She is a person, and people are complicated long before they are cruel. "I won't be part of anything that hurts someone on purpose," he said. "Good," I said. "Then you'll like this." We didn't need honey traps or tawdry games. We needed daylight. "Diana loves reflections," I told him. "She believes the life that looks best is the life that is best." If a room full of people sees a truth at the same time, even she will struggle to call it a misunderstanding. The plan was simple and slow, my favorite kind. Step 1. Proximity, not intimacy. Simon would join Diana's boutique fitness studio, the one with glass walls and a director who treats posture like a personality. He already runs, no one would find it odd. Step 2. Be decent. Hold a door, remember a name, listen more than you speak. Step 3. Let other people observe. Never whisper where a microphone can't find you. Let the story write itself in public ink. Your job is to be obvious about your boundaries, I said. Kind is not the same thing as available. She will test the difference. He looked at the cake as if advice were baked into it. If this becomes ugly, he asked, what do we do? We stop, I said. No victory is worth an unkindness we can't sleep beside. For 6 weeks, Simon became the quiet center of a noisy room. He corrected no one, lifted the lightest weights, laughed at the instructor's jokes, and offered to help carry mats like a gentleman who knows his hands are for useful things. Diana noticed by week 2. By week 4, she was saving him a space near the front. By week 6, she was telling him about the stress of managing children, work, a husband who doesn't get it, and a mother-in-law who collects attention like coupons. He moved with caution. When she steered the conversation toward lives not lived, he steered it back to playlists, smoothie recipes, the tedium of adult errands. When she suggested a coffee, he proposed a group juice with the class. When she pressed, he smiled like a man who knows what a line is for. What I did, in the meantime, was less theatrical. I went to the community center where my book club meets and asked about the upcoming neighborhood council forum, the one where parents routinely argue about playground budgets and the yoga studio wants a permit for a promotional showcase. We'll have the usual AV feed, the organizer said. Anyone can attend. We'll open the floor for public comment. Marvelous, I said, and brought muffins. On a wet Thursday, Diana texted Mark that she'd be at a late session. Mark told me while dropping off the children. She's been training a lot, he said, eyes tired in the way anchors get tired, steadily, without complaint. I am nobody's confessor, but I am a mother. What makes you happy these days? I asked him while Thomas built a card house and Lily invented names for the salt and pepper shakers. He thought about that longer than a man should have to. The kids, he said finally. The quiet after bedtime. Your roast chicken. That night, Simon sent a brief message. She asked to talk somewhere without the studio noise. I said the public forum's lobby is quiet and the coffee is terrible. I slept well for the first time in weeks. The forum turned out exactly as forums do, half practical concerns, half theater. I took a seat near the aisle with my knitting bag and the posture of a woman who came to support the playground's slide funding and definitely nothing else. The AV team set up a large monitor at the back for overflow. A camera faced the lectern to record comments for the city site. When Diana and Simon arrived, Diana wore a jacket that announces a person to a room. She greeted the studio director with a hug, so public it counted as advertising. Simon nodded to the volunteers and carried a stack of programs like a man grateful to be asked. During the break, Diana led Simon toward the lobby's quieter corner. I watched other people watch them. The studio director watched. A council member watched. The AV technician, whose hobby is noticing, watched. Diana leaned in, earnest, animated. I could read only intent, not words, but intent was enough. Simon kept his hands in his pockets and his eyes on the middle distance, like a man who knows where wanderings begin. After a minute, he shook his head gently, the sort of refusal that leaves dignity intact, and gestured back toward the crowd as if to say, let's be where we said we'd be. That was all. No drama. No scandal. Just a public moment with a single, unmistakable axis. One person pushing past a line and another person placing the line back where it belonged. The studio director approached them first. Everything good? She asked with a brightness that was more alarm than cheer. Simon smiled. All good. See you at Saturday class. Diana laughed too loudly. The AV technician adjusted a setting while not looking at them at all. People underestimate the power of a shared, quiet understanding. You don't need grainy footage or lurid details. All you need is a dozen witnesses who saw the same simple thing and knew what it meant. 2 hours later, after the playground agenda and a debate about bike racks so intense you'd think they guarded treasure, I walked past the refreshment table. Diana stood very still, phone in hand, staring at a blank screen like it owed her an apology. Simon chatted with a councilwoman about the city's free music nights. I collected my coat, thanked the volunteers, and let the night carry the story on its own legs. By morning, the studio director had texted Mark asking if everything was all right at home. She didn't specify why. She didn't have to. Mark stopped by my house with the children and a bag of bagels no one really wanted. He stared at his hands for a long moment. Did something happen last night? I poured orange juice. What did you see? I asked gently. Nothing, he said. And somehow that feels like the answer. He went home early to talk. Later, he returned alone. He looked like the moment a storm decides whether to break or to move on. I asked her to be honest, he said. She told me I'm paranoid. Then she told me it's my mother's fault I've become suspicious. Then she told me she's underappreciated. Then he stopped, swallowed. She told me the kids shouldn't come here for a while. I felt the old metronome rise again. And what did you say? He laughed without humor. I said the children will go where love is, and right now they need all of it. In the days that followed, Diana tried anger, then charm, then silence, the 3 traditional dances. The studio director quietly adjusted class rosters. Parents who had watched the lobby scene began answering each of Diana's stories with the soft bricks of their own observations. No one shouted. No one gossiped. A gentle, civic gravity did the work. Mark met with a counselor. He met with a lawyer. He set one appointment for a Saturday, while the kids were at my house, doing a jigsaw puzzle with missing sky pieces and arguing about whether clouds can be both. He asked if I could keep them overnight. I said yes and pretended I did not hear the way his voice broke around the thank you. On Sunday afternoon, he came back with forms whose language was mercifully dry. This is not a punishment, he said, mostly to himself. This is a boundary. When Diana arrived to collect the children, she stood on my porch like it had wronged her. I hope you're pleased, she said softly. I hope the children stay whole, I replied. She glanced at the potted rosemary I like to crush a little as I pass, so the house smells like intention. You wanted to make me small, she said. You succeeded. No, I said. I wanted you to realize the rest of us are not as small as you believed. The months that followed were not cinematic. They were the slow, careful work of ending something badly begun. There were custody schedules and bedtime routines negotiated with the seriousness of treaties. There were school projects and dentist appointments and a science fair volcano that refused to erupt until it mattered. There was grief, too, the honest kind that comes after a decision, not the theatrical kind that argues against it. I invited the children for dinner every Friday. I did not serve shellfish. I made roast chicken the way I always do, with time and love and a stubborn refusal to pretend that comfort food is simple. We set the table together. Lily lined up the forks like soldiers who had decided to lay down their arms. Thomas declared himself chief of gravy and took the role with alarming sincerity. Simon started visiting on Thursdays. He'd play for 10 minutes after dinner, each tune slightly braver than the last. Lily wanted to learn. I put stickers on the keys because beginners need maps. Thomas wanted no part of it until he realized you can be both loud and correct at a piano. One evening, Mark arrived with a paper bag and a question. Did you orchestrate all of this? He asked, looking at his shoes like a teenager. I set a table, I said. I made sure there was good lighting. The rest was people seeing what they already knew. He exhaled, some combination of relief and sadness, leaving with the breath. I kept waiting for a confession, for drama that would make it easy, he said. But the quiet truth was worse and better. I refilled his tea. Quiet truths last, I said. They don't crumble when the room changes. He nodded. I'm sorry about the way she spoke to you, he said after a while. Thank you, I replied. I'm sorry you had to hear what she thought of us from strangers. We sat in a comfortable hush, the kind you earn. Spring arrived like an apology letter from a harsh winter. The park swing sang again, the rosemary filled out, My knees informed me of rain an hour before the forecast did. The divorce moved as divorces do, slowly, then all at once. When it was over, everyone was exhausted and no one declared victory. That felt right. A month after the papers, I ran into Diana at the market. She was buying lemons, which is notable mostly because she used to call them garnish and now she considered them fruit. She looked smaller, not because life had punished her, but because life had asked her questions without letting her leave early. I shouldn't have spoken to you the way I did, she said to the citrus. I shouldn't have cooked a menu for your approval, I said to the cart. We stood there a long moment in the universal truce of produce aisles. They seem happy, she said finally, and there was no accusation in it. They're sturdy, I said. Sturdy is different from happy, but it helps. She nodded, placed one more lemon in her bag with the deliberation of a changed person, and walked away. I wished her well, sincerely, and was surprised to find that sincerity didn't fight me. On a Friday in June, Lily asked for oysters. The kind that tastes like the ocean pretending to be cold, she said. I laughed and said we would begin with smaller seas. We shucked 3 between us, made faces, and decided one was enough for that day. Thomas invented a rule that whoever tried the oyster could decide the movie. We watched something with a dragon and excellent sound design. Later, after dishes, Simon played a waltz that wanted to be a lullaby. Mark told a joke only a father would find funny and then laughed at his own laughter, which is the best sound we have. I sat with my tea and thought about that first evening, the butter, the steam, the almost strike that wasn't, the moment I decided to give the truth a stage instead of a fight. People call what happened revenge. I won't correct them. But I think of it as staging. I turned up the house lights and drew back the curtain so everyone could see where the exits were. No one had to fall into the orchestra pit. We walked out, some of us limping, all of us upright. My cooking is not for her, Diana once implied, and she was right. It's for those who come to the table willing to share the room, who understand that help and love look alike in a kitchen, and that boundaries are a kind of hospitality, too. We ate strawberry pie. Thomas declared it a diplomatic triumph. Lily asked what diplomatic means. I told her it means keeping the world together long enough to make dessert. She nodded as if I'd said something wise, and I suppose I had. When the house was quiet and the plates were drying in their neat little row, I pressed my palm to the cool window and listened to the night pretend to be larger than it is. I am 73. I am small. I am, as it turns out, not to be underestimated. And I will never again serve a welcome that requires someone else's permission to be eaten. Epilogue: How the lights stayed on. People asked me later what made the difference, the thing that turned a kitchen threat into a life rearranged without spectacle. I wrote it down for myself, and I suppose for Lily when she is grown enough to want the recipe. Do not confuse confrontation with proof. Confrontations win nights. Proof wins mornings. Choose public, ordinary places where people behave like their best edited selves. Editing reveals priorities. Recruit only kind people. Kindness is harder to lie about in front of a crowd. Make sure children see only the parts of truth that belong to them: love, steadiness, the unquestioned reliability of bedtime. When it's over, cook something simple. You'll be hungry for plain food. That is the whole of it. No spies. No traps. No scenes. Just a door opened in daylight and a woman.
My grandmother told me this story. Thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe. Bye bye.